What is up, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe Show. I finally got that out. And I am going to say it for the first time on Black Canada Talking. I am now a two-time award winner given out by the Canadian Ethnic Media Association. So my mentor said, when you do something, show proof. So back in 2018, as I've told you many times, I received an award for innovation. There it is. And then last Wednesday evening, I received my second award given out by the Canadian Ethnic Media Association. This was for, I know you probably can't see it great, maybe a little bit better. There we go, for podcasting news. So I'm now a two-time award winner given out by the Canadian Ethnic Media Association. And once a month, I host. I'm having challenges chatting today. Maybe it's the weather or the snow outside falling in Toronto. I host conversations for dads and fathers that are co-sponsored by Dad Central, Canada's National Fatherhood Organization, and Dove Men Care. But it's a Sunday afternoon, and most Sunday afternoons we do something called Black Canada Talking. Black Canada Talking, if you haven't heard about it, you're going to hear about it now. It's a live online event that provides Black Canadians the opportunity to give their takes and POVs on stories that are of importance to them. And we always like to have new friends on Black Canada Talking and the Dr. Vibe Show. And we have another new friend who was actually introduced to me by a lady that I very much care and love. But let's have her get the platform. Donna Paris is, among many things, an educator, a counselor, a mom, and a grandmother. She's a multi-generational African Canadian, born and raised in Nova Scotia, but has called Toronto home for the past 37 years. She has recently retired from her career as a teacher with the Toronto District School Board. She believes that it's important to know our history, who came before, and what it cost them. She knows in order to move us forward in our lives and reclaim the brilliant, powerful Black beings who came into this world, we need to tell our stories. It's only in going back that we truly get to have our present self. She's a collector of stories. She believes in Black history is forged by the lives, stories, and varied experiences of Black people. Her goal is to provide a platform for Black Canadians to share their rich history, a history that is often not included in the history books or in school curriculum or even in the media. She wants to hold space for Black people to share their tales of racism and discrimination, as well as the stories that demonstrate the strength and determination that help them stand strong and claim their place in Canadian history. Donna believes it's important that we be the ones telling our stories, which is something I very much believe in, not only telling our stories, but controlling our narrative. She's going to be joining us today to talk about her ongoing project in the Black Canada. So welcome for the first time, but not the last time, Donna Paris. How are we, Donna?
I'm fine. Thank you, Dr. Vibe, for having me on. I'm pretty excited to be here.
Well, I know you're excited because you've been telling me you're excited to be on here. How you doing today?
I'm okay. You know, I'm keeping warm. The snow is falling outside, but I'm all right.
Well, it's an old song, "Baby, It's Cold Outside, but it's warm in here." It's warm
in here, yes.
So that is wonderful, and we're very happy to have you on. Thank you. Great bio, but can you share a little bit of your background with us? Because nice professional background, but Donna's a Scotian.
Scotian, yes. I was born in Truro, Nova Scotia.
Yes.
I was probably 4.5, almost 5 by the time we moved from Truro. My dad joined the Navy and we moved to Cornwallis, which was an armed forces base in the Annapolis Valley. And when we moved there, we were the first Black family. We were the only Black family to live on that base. So
wow,
it was quite an experience. Quite an experience, yes.
If I can just politely interrupt what you just shared with us, do you remember any of that experience?
Oh, lots of it. I mean, I could even tell you on the way there, you know, we took the train when we moved, and there was 4 siblings. So the 5 of us were on the train with my mom going to Cornwallis, and we were excited. We're going to Cornwallis. We're going to Cornwallis. We didn't even know what Cornwallis was, but we were excited about going to this new place, and we're on the train. And we meet this white woman. My mother let us, walk around the train while she was looking after my young sister. And we met this white woman who was telling us all these wonderful stories about a hobby shop she was running in Cornwallis and how we could come there and do arts and crafts. And it sounded exciting. And we ran back to tell our mother that this woman had told us this thing. And my mother, she grabbed my arm and she said, "What else did she tell you? What did you tell her? Don't talk to those people. You can't trust them." This is what she says to me. "You can't trust them." And then we go to a place where everybody looks like that woman on the train. Everybody's white. And so I start out already feeling like, oh my goodness, what have we walked into here? You know, where this is the place where you can't trust people. You can't tell them anything that's going on in your home. You can't tell them what's happening in your life. And so it didn't set me up very well. That's for sure. That's for sure. Yeah.
Toronto, Nova Scotia. What are some of the pleasant memories you have of Toronto, Nova Scotia?
Well, you know, I was so young when I moved there, but the thing that I do not remember is my Aunt Nina and my Uncle Dave lived up the hill from us, and Vi and Din lived next door. You know, and that's one of the things that, you know, I was talking to someone the other day that, you know, when your family makes a move, you know, you're living, you know, poor working class, and then you move up to the middle class, you know, to have a better life. You get lots, but you lose something. And for me, what I lost was that Black community, you know, Nina and Dave being right up the hill, you know, all my cousins around me. So that was a big loss for me, you know, and I remember being there with them, going to Aunt Nina's. Aunt Nina used to cook a chicken and a roast pork together in the same pot. And it was like, oh, so delicious. And she would make lemon meringue pie from scratch. So, you know, she was a cook. Aunt Nina was a cook. So I really, yeah, I do remember that. I remember my mother doing laundry with with the washer board. And then I remember when we got the wringer washer for the first time, you know, that was a big deal. I remember my brother got his arm caught in the wringer washer. So, yeah.
Wow. Well, we've got some of your fan club that's chimed in already. We have a lady named Sylvia Paris.
That's my dad's sister.
I've never heard of that person before in my life. Big shout out to Sylvia Paris. And Donna, you had told me she recently received an award.
She did.
What was the award? Because again, Sylvia's so humble, she just kept it under the covers. If you didn't tell me, I would have never found out.
Sylvia won the 2020 RBC Canadian Woman Entrepreneur Award for Social Change. That was on Wednesday night. Yeah.
Wow. So the same night I got my recent award from the Canadian Ethnic Media Association, Sylvia had to outdo me. Okay, that's all right. That's all right.
That's
all right. Colette's saying, "Oh my, OMG, that happened to me with the ringer and my arm." So there's another story. So let's go along the journey. So after leaving Toronto, where did you go to next?
So we went to Cornwallis, and as I said, it was pretty hard. I've written a thing called I Am Black History. I wrote a piece for Understory magazine a couple of years ago, and actually it was just recently republished because of all the incidents that have happened this past summer. So in solidarity with the killing of George Ford and all of the anti-Black racism incidents and protests that have been happening. But anyways, I wrote this piece, and it talks about, being in grade 1 and my music teacher giving me a piece to sing and saying to me, go ahead and sing. And my mother sang around the house. I like to sing. I can't carry a tune, but I'm willing to try. So I try a little piece, and she's do it again. I try again. I'm not really sure what she wants. I'm just singing how I know how to sing. And by about the 4th time, she's pretty mad at me. And she grabs me and says, "What's the matter with you? Don't you know your people can sing?" And that was just like, that followed me. I was a kindergarten teacher for years, and you get music is a big thing in kindergarten, as you know. You were just saying how you were an EA in kindergarten. Like, this was a big deal. And that hurt me for many, many years. And so I had a number of incidents like that happened in Cornwallis. Teacher in grade 5 not believing me that I got 97% on a history test, because how could a little Black girl be that smart to be able to get that kind of grade, So it was tough times in Cornwallis.
Nice.
And I think that the people in Cornwallis, they have no idea. I ran into someone, it was my mom's 80th birthday, and we invited some people who she knew from way back then. And I talked to a young woman who was in Cornwallis when I was there, hadn't talked to her in 50 years. And she was talking about how, didn't we have such a wonderful time there in Cornwallis? And in my head, all I could think of was maybe for the white people, not so much for us. Not so much for us.
And where did you transition to after Cornwallis?
From Cornwallis, well, we left Cornwallis, went to Wallace Heights, which is in Dartmouth, Nova Scotia, then back to Cornwallis, back to Wallace Heights again, and then I moved to Halifax to go to Dalhousie for university. I went to high school in Halifax, in Dartmouth High, and then I went to Dalhousie University.
What was the university experience like?
Well, it was interesting. It's funny you asked me that, because growing up how I did, I felt pretty disconnected to Black people. And in my head, I had this idea that there was a way to be Black, and I was going to go to university and find out what that was. I was going to go and say, okay, I'm going to learn how to be Black, which of course was nonsense, because who I was as a Black person is who Black people are. But at the time, I was like, okay, I'm going to find out what it means to be Black. And again, I had a struggle. And part of the struggle was, I tried to meet some Black people. And I remember some of the Black women there making fun of me. I would sit in the cafeteria with them. They would make fun of the way I talked. They would make fun of the way I dressed. How they say, oh, you eat like a white girl. That was one of the comments they would make to me. So I struggled with even trying to connect with Black people, and have often felt not Black enough or not really Black, all of those things that lots of Black people, I think, across this country, well, and the people I've been talking to and interviewing lately have been telling me that they can share some of those same thoughts and feelings.
So how did you handle that identity challenge?
It was tough. It was very tough. It was, I think I just kept trying to meet people who were Black, trying to learn about Black culture, about Black people, about, I think this is part of why I'm doing what I do. I've been looking for stories. I've been looking to hear what have people been going through? What has it been like? And so, I joined a counseling community that I'm very much a part of, a peer counseling community. And we do a lot of work on looking at past hurts from racism, from not just racism, but sexism, all of the ways that we get hurt, all the oppression issues. And so through that, I've been able to do lots of work and heal myself from that, and come to a sense of, hey, who I am as a Black person is exactly who Black people are. And I am completely Black, who I might like country music. Doesn't make me not a Black person. I like to go skiing, or whatever it is, the things that I like to do. That's what Black people do, as far as I'm concerned. So, yeah.
Okay. So next part of the journey, what was up next for you?
So I left Halifax and moved to Toronto.
Why did you choose Toronto? Because it's interesting that I had a gentleman on last week, Wayne Harris, said for people of color, Toronto is the best city in Canada for opportunity. Was that part of the reason coming to Toronto?
Sure. Part of it was that there was an opportunity in Nova Scotia. And so I came to Toronto. I had family here. My father had, Sylvia is my aunt, and this first family, her brothers and sisters, and one of them was my dad. There's quite a few of them, and some of them lived here in Toronto. So I already had family. And so that made it an easier transition. I stayed with family when I first got here. And so it's a big place, but, I had people that I could count on and I could rely on. And there seemed like there was opportunity here, lots of opportunity here.
How did you get into the area of education? Oh, well, actually, no, there's a little hiccup before we got into the world of education. So you shared this with me before we went live. I want people to hear this live.
All right. So I am a licensed general machinist by trade.
How did that happen?
Well, I was looking for work. I was a mom. I had 2 children, and I was looking to transition into something. And at the time, the government was offering apprenticeships to women. They were trying to encourage women to go into non-traditional occupations. And so I decided, let me try that. I went on a tour to George Brown College, and it was interesting. I wanted to do bricklaying or electrician, something along those lines. But when I went to visit those courses, I didn't see any women taking the courses. But when I went into the machine shop, there were some women there. And I thought, okay, it means that this is something that women can do. And so I found a place who took me on as an apprentice. And I did my 4 years. I would, go to school so many hours a week, and then you work so many hours. And I got my license. I wrote my exam and I got my license. And so I worked for many years. From there, I went to George Brown College. They were offering other women a chance to learn machining, Black women in particular. And so they hired me as an instructor at George Brown College. And so that's how I started working there. So just transitioned from the job into education.
So when did you know it was time to exit that, and why the area of education?
Well, what was happening was the funding got cut. First of all, the funding got cut at George Brown College for many of the programs at that time. And so I was working in the, what do they call, academic upgrading at the time. I'm not sure what it's called now, but helping people who've lost their jobs and, retraining, upping their English skills, their language skills, all of that sort of stuff. And I did that for a while. And what I discovered, I started working with a lot of adults, and I thought, wow, these are adults who grew up in this country, lots of them, and they struggle with language skills. Like, it was really amazing to me that people were really struggling with their language skills. And I thought, maybe I need to go back to school and become a teacher so I could figure out what's going on in the public schools. And so that's what I did. I went back to school at Oise UT and got my teacher certificate. And that was in 1997. I got my first job working up at Bathurst and Wilson. At Summit Heights was the first school I ever taught at.
I know exactly where that is too.
Yes.
I know exactly. So you had a wonderful and established career in the role of education, or in the area of education.
Yes.
What any regrets doing that journey?
No, I've met some wonderful people. And some people will stay at a school their entire career. I think I hit about 5 different schools, and I loved it because every time I went, I learned something new and I met some more people. And it was just a lovely experience. The parents, the students, I loved, interacting with students. In particular, elementary. For the last 9 years, I did kindergarten. One of the things I love is that I got to work with another person. I got to work with an early childhood educator. Shout out to Manji. Hey, we worked so well together. We were together for 9 years. I thank my principal for putting us together. I love working with another adult in a classroom. And then I love working with the young people and seeing them come in, not knowing their alphabet, not knowing their letter sounds, all of that. And then just watching them learn to read and moving forward. And it was just a lot of fun. It was like getting to go back to school for me, because I didn't have such a good time in school for myself. I think that might even be a part of why I went into education. It wasn't such a good time for me being in school. And I wanted to see if I could make it good for other people, for other children, and thoroughly enjoyed it.
When did you know it was time to retire?
I could have retired a little bit earlier than I did, but someone said to me, before you retire, you should start thinking about what you want to do next. And I'd always wanted to do something in media, something radio, something to do with stories. And so I started planning a little bit ahead of time so once I retired, I would already be able to hit the ground running and have some things in place. And so that kind of happened, and then the time came, and it just felt right. The time felt right. And, luckily for me, I actually got out before the whole COVID and all of that stuff happened. So I retired in June of 2019.
Okay.
So.
Tell us the background on how In the Black Canada came into existence.
Well, I've always been interested in stories and about who came before me, what they had to go through. I've always been interested in that. I ask a lot of questions. And I was talking to my mom. My mom is 86 years old. She lives in Summerside, Prince Edward Island now, as do my sisters. And my mom was saying that she wanted to write a book. And she said, I already have the title. And I said, what's the title? She said, the title is, I Want to Be Black Before I Die. And I thought, wow, that's a pretty specific title. And I said, tell me more. And she said, my mother grew up in Windsor, Nova Scotia, and she lived in the town of Windsor, her family did, and lots of other Black people lived sort of in the outskirts of the town. And she was brought up to believe that she was better than other Black people, better than those Black people in Africa, better than the Black people in Lucasville and Beaverbank, wherever other Black people lived. And she said it left her feeling very disconnected to Black people, and also feeling like she wasn't truly Black. Right. And then I thought, well, that's the same experience I had growing up in Cornwallis, those same feelings that I'm left with. And I thought, I bet you there's lots of other people across this country. Black people make up 3.5% of the population in Canada, but we're pretty well spread out. I have relatives in Kamloops, British Columbia, and all the way to St. John's, Newfoundland. So we, you know, we're pretty widespread across this country. And the people I've been talking to lately and the people I've been interviewing, you know, almost 201 will say, oh, we had 800 kids in my high school, but there was only 5 Black people. Or, you know, I was the only Black kid in my class all the way through school. You know, there was a lot of those kinds of stories where people were the only one. And I thought, I bet you there's a lot of people who have stories to tell. And I would really like, you know, I want to know the stories. Right. And I want people to have a chance to tell those stories. Because I know I didn't get to tell those stories. And in telling them, a lot of healing. You asked me, how did I get through it? Telling the stories was a good way of healing for me to get through it. And I think that's part of what I want to do, is get people to tell their stories and get a chance to heal from, you know, what had happened to them, what they had gone through.
Where do you get the passion to be a storyteller from? Mom, dad, another relative? Where does that value come from?
I don't know. I've just always been interested in, you know, I love to read. I've always loved to read. And I like to know about characters. I like to know about people. And I've just always been interested in that. You know, I would give anything to be able to sit down with my grandmother, who's, you know, died back in the 60s, or my great grandfather, or any of those, and just listen to them. I've just always been interested in, what do people have to say? What was it like? I'm always imagining what it could have been like, what life was like for them. And I've just always had a passion to do that. And there's something, I don't know what it is. People tell me I have a way of making people feel comfortable, and people are willing to sit with me and tell their stories. And I love that they trust me enough to be able to share those with me. And I can just see what a difference it makes for them to be able to tell the stories.
Well, I just hope that you have enough note paper to take down all these stories, because I know you've got a big, ambitious goal to cover as many as possible. So definitely yes. Looking forward to that. Who was the first person feature? Actually, you know what? You came up with the idea. From the coming up with the idea till it became a reality, how much period of time was that?
Well, first of all, I didn't know how to go about doing any of this stuff. So there was a parent, I had a student in my class, and Gerald, and his mom, I knew she was doing something in media. So I went to her and I said, listen, I want to do a project. I'm working on something, and it seems to me you're doing something in media, and would you like to be involved in it? And she brought in her friends. So this is Nina Anning and Sonia Godding Tugabo, who we worked together and said, okay, let's start a collective. Let's see if we can do something about collecting stories. And so we got together, we came up with a name, In the Black Canada. The reason we picked the name In the Black Canada, because, you know, if you look up the word Black in the dictionary, it's a lot of negative definitions for the word Black. But when you're doing your accounts, when you're in the Black, things are good. So we said, okay, let's call ourselves In the Black, and then Canada, of course, because we're in Canada. So we came up with this name, we came up with the collective, and then we just went with it. We gathered a group of people one weekend. We interviewed a bunch of people, mostly from Toronto. We called that the web series, which is on the YouTube channel. You can see those stories. And then we were asked by Kenneth Montague, who does a Position as Desired show. He did a show a while ago. He's part of he owns the Wedge collection. And he was remounting his show in Windsor. And he asked us to come to Windsor and interview people who lived in Windsor and find out what their lives were like growing up in Windsor. And so we did that. It was a very successful show. And it was so successful, actually, that the Art Gallery of Windsor bought our video for their permanent collection. So it is part of the permanent collection of the Art Gallery of Windsor. And it's actually showing right now. So if people have to be, I don't know, actually, maybe the museums aren't open right now because of COVID, but it is, I think they were going to be showing it for about 3 years running, and it's going to be part of it is part of their permanent collection. So that's kind of where we got started. We did that. And it was a little bit away from where I was starting to go. I wanted to go and meet individual people and do audio collection, collect stories, audio stories. But it was great learning, and I really thank Nina and Sonia for taking me under their wings. They were well established and had done lots of other things, and they brought me under the wing and gave me some confidence to be able to kind of go out on my own. And so the collective is no longer together. We're doing our own projects. And then I decided, I really want to do this. I want to go from coast to coast across the country, meet Black people and just get them to talk about their stories, their ancestors' stories, people's journeys, how they got to Canada, what life was like for them, what life is like for them now, all of that. And that's where I started this journey. Sorry, I can't hear you.
Where did you get the burning desire to go on this journey?
I don't know. It was just there. Like I just wanted to, there's a place where I just decided this is something I was born. It feels like it. I'll tell you, when I am interviewing someone, I remember sitting there with a recorder when I used to be able to go into people's homes, and I'm sitting there with the recorder, and I would think, this is exactly where I'm supposed to be. Right. And at the same time, I feel completely out of my depth, like there's this I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just figuring out, go with me. But it feels like this is exactly what I am supposed to be doing. And I don't know where it came from, but it's there and I'm loving it.
Do you have a memory of the first person you interviewed?
Yes. The very first person I interviewed was Mary McCarthy in New Brunswick. Mary, I interviewed both Mary and her son Tandue, and Mary's a lovely woman and so welcoming. And I just love the story. Mary tells a lovely story. It's on the website, in the Black Canada website, about her father, going to get a haircut. He had joined the armed services and he was going to get a haircut. And he went down to the place in Halifax where people were supposed to get their haircut. And the barber refused to cut his hair. He said, no, I'm not going to cut your hair, because he was Black. And he went back to tell his commanding officer. And the commanding officer said, oh no, that's not going to happen. And he marched him down. And he told the barber, you're going to cut this man's hair or you will be getting no more work from the armed services.
Okay.
So her father got his hair cut, but yeah, it was lovely. Mary was my first interview. And it was just, and I knew right then, as soon as I just felt relaxed. And when Mary started talking, I thought, okay, it wasn't just in my head. I have all kinds of stories. My mother has all kinds of stories, my family. Other people have lots of stories, and they're stories that people want to tell and are ready to tell. So,
right. So Nicole is saying, love this, I can so identify. Felice is saying, so proud of you and your project. Wonderful.
Very sweet.
Why has it taken, in your opinion, so long, and we still got a long way to go, to get our stories out there?
Well, we're not we're not often in the positions to make the decisions about what stories get told. Who's deciding what curriculum is going to be taught in the schools? We're often not in those positions making those kinds of decisions. And frankly, I think people think that we don't have any stories to tell. People aren't knocking on the door saying, what's your life been like? And so it's been taking a long time. And the other piece also, though, is that it's hard sometimes for people to tell the stories. I mean, there's a lot of emotion wrapped up in the stories and the heart. I was talking to a man, Gordon Shadrach, who's an amazing artist, and you can check out his website. It's amazing, amazing work that he does. But he was talking about growing up in Brampton, Ontario, and about how stressful it was to be always held to a higher standard and having to always make the good choices and always having to be bigger than something, greater than something that was bigger than him, had to, and so it's just, it's hard, it's tiring. It's been hard for people. And as I say, there's no one's running us down saying, tell us your story. Well, they didn't used to be. Now I think that's changing. I mean, one of the things I love about Sylvia and the Delmore Buddy Day Learning Institute is that they are doing that. They put out the Viola Desmond book. They put out an African history book, a grade 11 African history book. So there are organizations who are doing that work, but more needs to be done. And I think it's, I think you might have said this in my bio, I'm not sure, but I believe we're just regular people. And I think that, Black history is just regular people living their lives. You're just living your life. I'm just living my life. My grandmother was just living her life. My grandfather, we don't know that we're making history, but we are as we're moving through. And so it's just about us making history, moving forward in our lives, and getting a chance to talk about it. And I think it's true. There's not enough. And I see more now. I see Desmond Cole is out there telling stories about Black people and what's happening, but we need more of that. And so. That's my job. That's my goal.
I would like to get from you 2 or 3 interesting stories that you've had shared to you along the journey.
Right. Let me think. What's the best? Well, Florence Harrison grew up in Detroit. Sorry, grew up in Windsor, Ontario, and she tells the story of being 17 years old and going to her first job and all excited. And she went to a restaurant and she walked into the restaurant. There was another table of people there, and they had those, when you used to put jukeboxes, you used to put money in the jukebox. So she got all excited. She's putting her money in the jukebox, not really paying attention. But nobody's come to take her order. So then she walks up, she notices the other people have left, and she walks up to the little counter and says, do I put my order in here, or does someone come? And they said to her, oh, no, sorry, we're closed. And she said, well, you weren't closed when I came in. And they said, oh, yeah, but we're closed. And so she kind of left, and she went home and she told her father, who got very upset, called the ombudsman, brought a case against them. And they had to go and apologize to her. And she said she was so proud because she gets this handwritten letter made out to her 17-year-old self, an apology from this restaurant, and inviting her to come back and to have, it was a pizza place, and to come back and have all the pizzas she wants. So she said she took all the kids from her church, and they all showed up and they all got free pizza. So it was she said it was great. But she said she learned how to stand up for herself, that she learned that you didn't have to just take the things that people were doing for you, and that her parents would support her to stand up for herself. So I love that story. Can't hear you again, sorry.
Do you hear at this time of your journey with this more Black Canadians and non-Black Canadians wanting to hear the stories?
Yeah, I think, oh yes, for sure. I think everybody needs to hear these stories. I think Black people need to hear these stories. They need to know, first of all, that you are not alone. There was something, when we did the Windsor project, I remember I was talking to someone and saying, oh my God, here I was in Cornwallis going through what I was going through, and you were here in Windsor going through what you were going through. And it's not like, misery loves company, but there was something about that. Oh, it wasn't just me. There was something else going on here, and other people have experienced and understand what it is that I was going through. And so I think, for one thing, we need to understand that. We need to know that. We need to know that other people have gone through this, and that it wasn't you. I think Tanduay, Mary's son Tanduay, was also interviewed, and he said, oh, it wasn't me, it was the system. Like, it kind of dawned on him after a while. He kept thinking, there's something wrong with me, all the things that were going wrong. It wasn't me, it was the system that was wrong. And so, and I think that, for sure, white people need to know. I mean, people think that there's no racism in Canada. People think that, we don't have a racist past. We have Africville. We have, besides towards Black people, we have Chinese head tax. We have the Japanese internment camps. We have the residential schools. We have denial of Blacks in sports. Herb Carnegie was a Black player, and he was not allowed to play in sports. We have Black boxers who were so great, but white boxers would not box with them. We have a long history of racism in Canada, and people don't know that. That gets glossed over. And I think those stories need to get out there for Black children to be able to be proud. My grandfather, Sylvia's father, was a member of the No. 2 Construction Battalion. Now, you might know, I don't know if you know what the No. 2 Construction Battalion is, but lots of people don't. It's the first and only all Black battalion that fought in the First World War,
Go ahead, because I have a story to relate with this. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah. So it was a battalion. At first, they didn't want Black people to be in the war. They didn't want a checkerboard army, is how they put it. But as time went on, they needed more people. And so my grandfather and 600 other Black men from Ontario, Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, they went and fought. They were called the Construction Battalion because they were not given guns. They were to go part of the forestry. My grandfather was a sapper. He dug ditches, they built the roads, they did the forestry. This is Black Canadian history. This is history that's not in the history. It wasn't until, I think, Calvin Ruck, Senator Ruck, wrote a book, the No. 2 Construction Battalion. I think it's Canada's a best kept military secret. And he wrote a book about it. And then finally the military stepped up and said, yeah, we should be honoring these guys. And so every year now they do a celebration. Canada Post put out a stamp. You can get a stamp. My grandfather is on the stamp. He's second from the left. If you get the stamp, you can check it out. Like, this is amazing. And I'm one person. I have some, pretty varied Black history. And I think lots of Black people have lots of history about, and we don't know about it. And we need to be knowing about this. We need to be telling these stories and putting them out.
So what did I say before we came online? It's like a family reunion. It's like they're like Sylvia's saying we should build a club built around listening to these stories and talking for healing and stream. I agree, Sylvia. If you want to discuss offline, I'm all up for it.
Great.
And Darcy Paris, loving hearing your story, Aunt Donna.
That's my nephew, my sister's son. Yes, thanks, Darcy.
Nice, very very nice. Have you ever received pushback along the journey in doing this?
Not so far.
Good.
Not so far. I just get lots of, people keep, I wrote this piece called I Am Black History, as I was saying, and I talked about, it started out talking about my great-great-grandfather and my grandfather and my father and me, and it was, our experience of racism in Canada. Mm-hmm. And I was at a cousin's house once and having some kind of gathering, and someone came in and she said, "Oh, you're the Donna Paris who wrote that piece. I thought you were talking about my life. I too have that experience of grade 5 and whatever." So I think for the most part, people are like, yeah, I can tell you a story like that. Not exactly the same, but kind of like that, As I said, just the people, I've seen some people's, class photos. I have a class photo, I'm the one Black face in a sea of white folks. And I've seen other Black people, Windsor, in New Brunswick, the one Black face in a sea of white face. I mean, this is a common story.
Yes.
These are common stories, and we need to tell them. We need to get those stories out for ourselves. But I think you're right. I think, and white people need to know, we have contributed so much to this country, the things that Black people have done. It's amazing. And we've covered some of that. If you go on our YouTube channel, and you'll see some of the stories that we talked about the first, I think it was a comptroller, a mayor in Toronto. His picture is hanging in City Hall, was a Black man. People don't know that. I mean, his house is here. It's a historical house in down on Broadview Avenue. Mm-hmm. There's lots of things that people don't know about what Black people have. I mean, Africville, Hogan's Alley in British Columbia. You know what I learned about? I went to Prince Edward Island this summer, and I learned about the bog. And the bog was an area in Charlottetown, Prince Edward Island, that was all Black people. They had come with the soldiers who were given land, who were part of the War of 1812, and they came with the soldiers. It was called the bog because it was swampy, terrible land that they lived in.
Yep.
Lots of Black people in Prince Edward Island. People think there's no Black people in PEI. There was a whole Black community. I mean, that community is now, it's the Parliament buildings in Charlottetown, but people mix together with Acadians, they mix together with Iroquois, they mix together with Scottish people, and now they've moved into other parts of Prince Edward Island. But there's people. Do people know about the bog? Do they know about the Colored Hockey League? I learned about the Colored Hockey League. There was a Colored Hockey League out of North Preston, Nova Scotia, and they just came up with a stamp for them, as a matter of fact, honoring the Maritime Hockey League. And they've started 22 years before the National Hockey League. And those Black Hockey League players have been credited with inventing the slap shot and a particular kind of way that how goalies attend the goalie net. I don't know much about hockey, but there's so much history that we don't know about. And just regular people that I met were telling me these stories. And there's lots more to tell. Lots more to tell. Yeah. Okay.
Nicole is saying, I love this. How she has the stamp blown up for Black History Month when she worked at the Senate.
Nice.
This is good.
That made me so proud. I mean, but that's what I started to say about the stamp, was that my grandfather, that if I wish I'd known that as a child. That would have really, the place I was feeling about myself as a Black person and not feeling very confident in myself. If I knew, wow, my grandfather was a member of the No. 2 Construction Battalion, that would have gone a long way for me, giving me confidence and making me feel better about myself. And I think that's what, the hockey players, all of that, if young Black kids knew what they went through, what they did, it could just make such a difference in your life. It can really make a huge difference in your life. Yeah.
You mentioned about making differences in people's lives. Could you share a story where a story that made a difference in your life, or being being in the environment where someone had the opportunity to share their story, it made a difference in their life? Because I fully believe when you get a chance to share your story,
right,
the person who's giving it gets a benefit of it too.
Yes, that's true. I'm trying to think. Oh, I've heard so many stories. Let me think of one. There was one, Sipo Kwako tells a story. Sipo
Yes.
Tells a story about taking, about, where he lived. He lived on Bloor Street, Bloor and College Street, I think he said.
Yeah, well, just around where my dad used to teach.
Yeah, and they were like the only Black family around there. And I think he said Ken Jeffers started a group with young Black people playing basketball, and him talking about what that was like, the kind of first time he got to go and hang out with a whole bunch of young Black people, getting a chance to play basketball. And I remember that. I remember the first time when, it was struggle at Dalhousie, but it was also amazing to be able to go there and be amongst other Black people and not to feel so alone. It really, it was really lovely to hear him talk about that.
Do you feel, are you getting more and more interest for your project over the years? Because you've been doing it for a while now, and obviously with the events of this year, I'm sure it's heightened. But were you getting an increased demand before 2020 hit?
Right. Well, it hasn't been that we went this portion of it. I'm calling this the I Am Black History Project. We did last fall. My partner David Oforis Zapparoli, we went to Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, Prince Edward Island, and we went and met people, and we did interviews. David did all the portraits for the website.
Wow.
And we started there, and of course we came back. It was Christmas and other things. We went went on a little bit of a vacation, and then we intended to go out west to meet people there and do the stories. Well, then COVID hit. And so it was like, for a while, it kind of stopped us, because I was thinking, my plan was to do an art installation at a gallery and have, people's pictures up on the walls, and then have some kind of way that you could listen to the audio recordings. But that wasn't going to happen because of COVID. And then I started rethinking, well, what am I going to do now? And then I thought, okay, maybe I need to get this on a website. And so I started the website, and I learned how to do SoundCloud and all of these other things, and had some help from a lovely Winton Cape helped me put the website together, and we worked on the website and got that up and running. And then I started thinking about, well, how I need to get more stories, and really people have just been telling other people, I have a friend and she's doing these stories. Would you like to be on it? And sure, I'd like to do it. And they hooked me up. And so, it's been wonderful. I'm hoping, through this time with you on the show, that more people will call, especially people. I don't want anyone to get upset that there's only people in Ontario, New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, all East Coast. It's not just that. I want to hear from people from Alberta, all in Manitoba, all the way through BC, Northwest Territories, wherever it is that Black people live. I want to hear stories from those.
It's interesting you mentioned Northwest Territories. Before everything got into the state it is now, I actually was privileged to go up to Yellowknife and speak at a conference, or share at a conference in Yellowknife. And one of the things that blew my mind, in Yellowknife, there is a significant Somalian population in Yellowknife.
Yes.
I was, what?
That's what I'm talking about. There are Black people all over this country.
Yes. And
people don't know what it is they had to go through to be able to get there and stay there, and what life is like for them. And that's the stories that I want us to know about and to hear about and to
Yeah,
share.
yeah. I'm in
Yeah.
a cab. It's minus 47 degrees Celsius. And I have a Somalian cab driver going, "What the heck are you doing here?" He says,
That's right.
I've been here for 20 years." I go, "You are crazy. It's too cold." And he said, I asked him, what are you doing? He says, "I can get work here, no problem."
Yeah. Yeah. That's it. When we're a resilient people. We
Yes.
go where we have to go. We do what we have to do, right? To survive. We can't just sit down and say, well, I can't find anything. I guess I'll just whatever. No, we keep moving forward. We keep, I don't know, you can say whatever you want about Black people, but we are a pretty strong people, I would say. And we have figured out a way. I think I was talking to a man, Chad Lucas, the other day, who grew up in Lucasville. And he was saying how we find a way where there is no way. Black people find a way where there is no way.
True. I know our time is beginning to wind down, so I'm going to remind you there were some people you wanted to shout out.
Yes, there were some people for sure. First of all, I want to thank the Canadian Council for the Arts for the grant that I got this past summer and the very generous donation I got from my friend Felice Markowitz. Thank you so much. To Nina and Sonia that I mentioned before, who got me started within the Black Canada Collective. To my gals, Kemi and Denise, and to Roy Cousins and my team, Curtis. Folks, you know who you are. You've supported me from the beginning. Roy's always saying, just go, Paris, go. I'm going, Roy. I'm going. I'm trying. and last but not least, to my my love and my partner, David Oforio Zapparoli, who traveled with me. As I said, he did the portraits for the I Am Black History Project. He's always happy to come along with me to make my visions and my dreams come true. And so I big up to him. Thank him so much for all this support. And to Kashaila and to Ali, who are helping me with the podcast. Thanks. Lots of people have supported me along the way. I feel very fortunate, very fortunate.
What would your life be if you weren't doing this?
Oh, I was thinking about that the other day, and I thought, because sometimes it's like it's a lot. Like I am so busy sometimes, and I think I'm retired. I should be just sitting back on the sofa reading a book or relaxing. And then I thought I wouldn't like that. I would not like that. I mean, you talk about my Aunt Sylvia. Her brother teases. He says, "I don't know who moves more, that you and Sylvia. You're always on the go," and it's true. I always want to be on the go. I always have some kind of project. I'm thinking about. I want to write a children's book, and I've got some ideas for some things I want to do there. But I think this is what I really believe. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. That I am the person who was put here for this reason, to go and find out these stories and really make a difference in the lives of Black Canadians and all Canadians, because they all need to know these stories.
What keeps you going?
I don't know, just my inner, I love doing it. I really do. The other day I was saying to a friend, I wake up in the morning and I can't wait to get out of bed and get started on doing the things that I want to do. Just the joy of it. Like I'm retired, and so it's on my time.
Right.
And I've done my time doing lots of other stuff, and so it's my time to do what I want to do. These are things that I've wanted to do for a very long time, and I just feel joyful doing it, and it really gives me a lot. I have this picture of myself. It can almost make me cry just thinking about this little Black girl sitting on a step in Cornwallis, really not happy about my life, not thinking life was going to be much of anything. And I would love to go back to that little girl and tell her, you know what, your life is going to be bigger than you ever could have imagined. And, I just wish I could talk to her and tell her that. And I am loving my life. It is, a friend said to me something about, Donna Paris, your life is calling you. And I said to a friend, I guess I've answered the call. And
yes,
that's it. I've answered the call of my life. I haven't missed my life. I'm right here living it, and I'm loving it. And I want, and also the joy that I've got from healing, from telling my story. I want that for other people. I want the relief that I feel. I want to see that on the faces of other people. I want to know the stories. I want to hear the history, but I also want to see the healing happen for people.
What do you mean the healing?
Well, when you get to tell your story, the more I talk about the things, it takes the sting out of them. The more I share them, and people say to me, "Wow, that must have been really hard," or they'll say, "Hey, I can tell you, I went through something like that." What I was saying earlier about not feeling alone.
Yeah.
There's a real healing in being able to talk
Mhm.
and tell the stories of the things that you went through. But you survived. I mean, obviously I survived. I'm here, right? Whatever happened to me, I guess it's all good because it made me who I am today. I mean, I wouldn't wish some of the things on people, but it has made me who I am today. And so
Give me your big dream with this. What would be your big dream?
Oh,
Your big bodacious dream for this.
I would like to have someone from Nunavut, a Black person, call me from Nunavut and say, I got a story to tell. And, I'd love to be able to have them tell their story and put that up. I want to have an installation in an art gallery. I want to have Black people's pictures all over the place. I want to have stations where people can come in and see what we've done, but then also tell their own story. This is the plan. I want this to be a national project.
Okay.
And I want people to be using these stories in schools. I want teachers to be saying, hey, I can tell you about Lucasville. I have a guy here who talked about his ancestor was one of the co-founders of the town of Lucasville. I want people to be using this in schools, to be educating children, all children, about Black Canadian history.
Okay. So final conversation piece. One question with two parts. What is your message to non-Black Canadians when it comes to Black Canadian history?
Well, first I'd say learn the history, and not just about Black Canadians, but Indigenous Canadians, about all people of the global majority. Learn the history of Canada. Like we pretend, that we don't have this history that we have here in Canada, and educate yourself. I would say educate yourself and find out what's the real story. What are the real stories about what happened? Who really was Sir John A. Macdonald? What happened in the residential schools? What was the Chinese head tax about? What was the Japanese internment camps about? What was Africville and what really happened there? Find out, educate yourself. Educate yourself is what I would say.
And then what is your message when it comes to Black Canadian history to Black Canadians?
Yeah, be proud. Be proud of your story, your history, whatever it was. I mean, whatever it was whatever our ancestors went through, it was harsh and it was hard, but they went through it for us. When I talk about my grandfather, my great-great-great-grandfather who came from Ireland, he was a grandson of a slave owner. And I always say he was thinking about me. He didn't know me, but he was many generations ago. But in living the life that he lived and striving for a better life, he was thinking about the future. So that means he was thinking about me. And I would love for my great-great-greats to say, hey, my grandma Donna was thinking about me and doing what she's doing. She was setting setting me up for life. And I'm really, I would say be proud. Find out your history. Be proud of that history. Share that history. Tell those stories. I mean, you don't have to just tell the stories to me. Just tell your stories to each other. Get a chance and forgive yourself in any of the places where you thought, like I used to be mad at myself that I didn't call people out on when racist things happened, but I didn't have the language and I was young and I reached a certain age where I said, I'm not taking that anymore. And I started standing up for myself. But forgive yourself and love yourself and love your people.
Let's slip in one more conversation piece. This has been quite a year for everybody.
Yeah.
Especially Black Canadians.
Mm-hmm.
As we come to the end of 2020.
Yes.
What message would you have for Black Canadians for 2021?
Well, I think we're at a very good place right now. I think that, I don't want to be overly optimistic, but I think given the events of what have happened this past summer and the awareness that more people have, I mean, you could not, I don't know where you'd be if you didn't see what was happening this past summer. And I think COVID is part of that people were home, got forced to look and see some things that they might not normally have seen. And I would say, people are waking up, and don't stand back and don't hide and don't stand up, do all the things that were you stand up for yourself and make your voice known. Make your voice known. You know, our motto is our voices, our stories. Make your voice known. Tell your story. Get that out. You know, don't let people make you feel or make you think that you're less than anything, because we are a great people, and own that. Own your stories, own your people. I guess that's what I would say.
Great words to end off by. And as I'm going to just piggyback on what Donna is saying, know your history.
Yes.
And it doesn't have to be someone else's. There's history in all our families.
That's right. Just regular Black people have a lot of really interesting history to tell. That's for sure.
And I'm also going to encourage, one of the things I've become very passionate over the last few years is intergenerational communication. So if they're younger people,
yes,
are there people that are older than you? Ask them some of their story, because it's not on the TV, it's on the screen. They've lived it. You will be amazed about some of the things that you hear. I'm almost sure you'll go, wow.
Yes. Yes. You're right. You're right.
You will go, wow. Because even the last years I found out history about my dad, and I'll just drop this little tidbit. My dad went to Howard University.
Wow. Okay.
One of his teachers was the late Toni Morrison.
Wow. Wow. And did you know that when your dad was younger?
No, just in the last few years, that's what and at one time she was engaged to a Jamaican gentleman. But one of his teachers at Howard University, he was actually one of the first Jamaican men to go to Howard University.
Wow. See, there you go. Black Canadian history.
Yeah.
In our family, in your family.
It's everywhere.
It's everywhere. It is, yes.
Just ask, because especially when our elders are gone, you're not going to get it.
That's it. The stories are gone. Yeah, I knew my grandfather, and I'm sorry that I didn't know about the number 2 construction battalion, that I could have asked him questions.
Exactly. Right. Well, Donna, thank you so much. We're going to put up the information on the screen, how people can get more information about what your great team is doing. There's the website in the blackcanada.ca, Facebook in the Black Canada, and then on Instagram in the Black Canada. That's everything there. Please reach out and share stories with her.
Yes. I'm ready.
and even though she can't get out, there is something called a phone. There's things like this.
Yes, that's right.
So especially here in Ontario right now, or in Toronto, we're locked down for the next little while. So no better time to get in touch with Donna to share those stories. She ain't going anywhere.
That's right.
Right? For the next 28 days, she ain't going nowhere. So catch her while you can. I am Dr. Vibe. I'm host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe show, the home of Epic Conversations. I'm the host of Conversations 2020 and 2018 Canadian Ethnic Media Association award winner. If you want to find out more information about me, the website, thedrvibeshow.com. Also note that once a month I host conversations for dads and fathers that are co-sponsored by Dad Central, Canada's National Fatherhood Organization, and Dove Men Care. I'd like to thank everyone who chimed in today live that I know of: David, Sylvia, Comedy Chick, Nicole, Darcy. I think the half the Paris clan was on this for some strange reason. Aline, Colette, Felice, thank you so much for making the conversation epic. As always, I end off with my signature when I end off a conversation. Live your life as a dream. If you can dream it, you can make it. Sometimes you have to get small to get stronger. Block assumptions, then aim bigger, aim better, aim higher, aim wider. And also remember to give yourself grace, and thanks to BIA Media for the epic production. God bless, peace be well, keep the faith, and walk good. See you next week on Black Canada Talking. Last Sunday of the month, we'll have Elle, Warren, and Cesar. Last Sunday of the month, Black Canadian Lens Plano. Goodbye, everybody.